Let's talk about Nintendo's schedule for the rest of the year. Some games have been dated, some things haven't been filled in, and we know that there is a lot of stuff that they are going to want to schedule very precisely in 2025. So let's investigate. I've reviewed before some of the overall quirks of the way Nintendo likes to schedule its titles in a separate video if you're interested in their general strategy, but for now, let's start at the beginning. The first release date we have is Mario Kart World on the 5th of June. Then there's also the Switch 2 editions of Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, giving Zelda some good representation at launch. While Nintendo has made a virtue of remasters of its 3D Zelda games around 10 years after they first launched, games like Skyward Sword HD and Ocarina of Time 3D, I think that cycle has to now end with both Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom receiving graphical polishes here, which should make them fit for the new generation. I kind of hope they do give Tears of the Kingdom especially a little more of a push than they've been doing recently, given how major a title it was and how quickly it seems to have vanished from the discussion. Also at launch is Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour. To be honest, while a lot has been made of the price of Mario Kart World, I think I'm a bit more concerned by making a game that is literally designed to give you a tour of the system into a paid download. It feels unwelcome to me. Now, at minimum, this feels like it would have been a gracious one for the expansion pack, but I guess given the choice, I would rather what they gave us for air quotes free or packaged with the expansion pack, which is the Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom glow ups, rather than the welcome game. Still, it is an odd choice. So, as expected, a major title, Mario Kart, a tech demo side game, and in fact one that is much more explicitly a tech demo than usual, and then they're relying on Switch 2 versions of all games to bulk up the lineup instead of how they used snipper clips in 2017 as a third launch title. There's a 6-week gap afterwards until the next game that is dated, that being Donkey Kong Bonanza on the 17th of July. Now, it's possible that this long gap will hold. Nintendo has done 6-week periods before, especially after very big games, and it's early enough in the system's life that they may want to let more consoles go out before the next release. However, in times when there are a lot of major games releasing, they go down to 3 weeks or even occasionally 2 weeks between titles, and so I think it is likely that we will get a game on the 26th of June. It is curious to me still that there is no Switch 1 game for this quarter, and so that is a possibility, but if there is to be such a game, it hasn't been announced yet unless they decide, which I think is unlikely, to put Metroid Prime 4 Beyond into that slot. So let's stick a pin in that for a moment because we need to talk about the next couple of titles that have been dated. Firstly, we have, and get ready for the heft of this title, Super Mario Party Jamboree Switch 2 Edition plus Jamboree TV. That's the 24th of July. Then Kirby and the Forgotten Land plus Star-Crossed World will drop on the 28th of August, a 5-week gap. However, we also have a time frame, but not a specific date, for Dragon Drive, which just says it's summer. I think there are a couple of plausible slots for this. The first would be that 26th of June slot. However, might they also do this in August? Now, to be clear, I am usually very down on the possibilities of an August release from Nintendo outside the last week of the month because historically they have avoided this for a long time. Japanese people often take the Obon period off, and because of Japan's historically work-obsessed culture, companies often need to encourage people to make sure they do have breaks. With odd exceptions like Kirby's Dream Buffet, August is not a big time for Nintendo games, and it's telling that the one game dated for August is actually from HAL, who do have a slightly bigger history with the month. On balance too, I think the Jamboree Switch 2 edition is going to be considered by them to be a really big game, worth its own advertising window for the several weeks that follow. Of course, summer could mean the summer quarter ending September, so for Dragon Drive, we don't have a September game dated yet, and it could potentially fill this slot. I'm not sure that coming back in September with something as apparently low-key as Dragon Drive, though, as fun as it looks, it seems to be a smaller experience, is necessarily their best move, but I could see it fitting into the same kind of slot that WarioWare did in 2021 of the 11th of September, 2 weeks after Kirby. However, let's not forget, September is the 40th anniversary of Super Mario Bros. Therefore, I think Dragon Drive is far more likely to be dated with the 26th of June, and frankly, by the time this video drops on YouTube, it's Patreon exclusive to start, I half expect it to have been announced in the Treehouse showcases. The idea being that in the full presentation, they get to drop the date and therefore raise awareness of the game a little bit, whereas in the original Direct, it would have got lost. Another title without any kind of guidance on release is Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. It is possible that they could drop Metroid Prime 4 Beyond into that June slot, but the sheer scale of Bonanza, as well as the new Mario Kart, makes me feel like they won't do this. It would just be overkill and a massive way to have such huge first-party games back to back, and while they want the new system to be well supported, there's a risk that they just end up burying some of these games as a result. Metroid, however, has a long history with releases at the end of the year. I've talked before about how September, October, sometimes August and November, but usually this kind of time frame is a period they really seem to like for Metroid. And given the other games on the block, I could see Metroid Prime 4 Beyond on the 20th of September, or perhaps the 2nd of October, but more on this in a moment. This gives a grace period to Kirby and the Forgotten Land plus Starcross World and to Dragon Drive, but not so long that they run out of momentum in terms of their most major games. Then we're into the holiday period, and we know that there are 3 games that are in contention here: Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment, Kirby Air Riders, and Pokemon Legends ZA. I think Pokemon Legends ZA is almost a slam dunk for the Pokemon Company's traditional slot right before the Thanksgiving sales weekend, probably on the 20th of November. If we go back 3 weeks, which is normally the kinds of gaps we see during this period, we get the 30th of October. Now, it must be said, Nintendo does quite like to drop games with a somewhat scarier vibe into the pre-Halloween slot, as they've done with Luigi's Mansion 3 and Bayonetta 3 in previous years. So this has to be an outside shot for Metroid Prime 4, but I actually think Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment is more likely here. Age of Calamity was their big November 2020 title, absent anything from the Pokemon Company or really anything else at that time, given that it was mid-pandemic. Fire Emblem Warriors in 2017 was also an October drop. The only question to me, therefore, is which way round Metroid Prime 4 and Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment will go. Metroid is usually a game they like slightly earlier in the pre-holiday run, though. Samus Returns was September and Metroid Dread was the 5th of October, and previous titles have gone as far back as late August, so on balance, I think earlier is more likely for Metroid Prime 4. So does Metroid Prime 4 on 5th of October and Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment on the 30th feel plausible? Well, keep that asterisk on Metroid Prime 4 because we're going to look at something else in a second. But of the confirmed games, this leaves just Kirby Air Riders, which I would expect on the 11th of December. The December slot isn't always used for such big games, but of course Xenoblade Chronicles 2 in 2017 and Super Smash Bros. Ultimate in 2018 from Masahiro Sakurai himself launched in this window in previous years. I think they tend to keep this slot for either when they have such a big holiday season that there's spillover, or for titles that are casual and might appeal to the pre-Christmas crowd, but they don't want taking attention before the Thanksgiving sales window, think Big Brain Academy, or, as in this case, where they want to give the developers maximum leeway to get their games done. Monolith Soft certainly seemed to be struggling to get Xenoblade Chronicles 2 under the wire with a few post-launch patches to glam it up, and Super Smash Bros. Ultimate obviously was a monster effort from Sakurai, and I'm sure they wanted to give him as much time as possible to get it ready. This also gives the new Kirby the greatest possible period within 2025 since Forgotten Land plus Starcross World, and so that would allow both Kirby titles their promotional time in the sun, with Forgotten Land getting a good few months on Kirby Air Riders. This is already a pretty full lineup then, but I don't think we're done yet. At minimum, I think there'll be some kind of Switch 1 compatible release for September linked to Mario, and I fully expect there to be a Super Mario Bros. Wonder Switch 2 edition that adds new features to that game. How could there not be? Note also that there's currently 0 Mario representation in the holiday month, and that's unusual. So when would such a game launch? It would be tight to announce and release it in September. doable, but I don't think they'll want to eclipse Kirby and the Forgotten Land too badly. Also, Mario is traditionally an October month, and I doubt anything will change now in the era of Switch 2. So I'm going to say that I think we'll get Metroid Prime 4 Beyond on the 25th of September, then a 2-week gap, just like the one between Bonanza and Super Mario Party Jamboree's Nintendo Switch 2 edition, and then we will get the Nintendo Switch 2 edition of Super Mario Bros. Wonder on the 11th of October. I certainly wouldn't bet against other Super Mario-themed goodness in this window, though, such as online or mobile games. We've gone through a period where Mario has been getting 2 holiday window games a season for the 2023 and 2024 years. However, I suspect the next big game to be dated will be the Super Mario game for 2. I don't expect that announcement before September now, as I don't think they'll want to scoop Donkey Kong by announcing another major 3D platform title, but once Bonanza is out, I think all bets are off in terms of Mario, and a February to May release window slipstreaming the movie seems likely. I would also bet on Tomodachi Life coming out this financial year, possibly even as their March game. Given the Switch 2's chat feature and the popularity of the title on 3DS, it seems like an absolute slam dunk for a day one Switch 2 edition as a way to drive social conversations, which is clearly a massive priority for them. I think they will want to wait for the first holiday season, and then I wouldn't be surprised if we see it promoted alongside the Switch 2 camera. As for Rhythm Heaven, that could slip later, but they don't usually reveal games all that far in advance, so I would be surprised if it was much later than May of 2026. With so much filled in, my expectations for a Switch 2 Direct in June that reveals a lot more are slightly diminished. I think we'll get a regular drumbeat of Directs, but chiefly as partner showcases and to promote titles like Bonanza. I could see a June Direct that gives us some more extra dates and details and maybe pencils in a couple of new titles, not Mario, but maybe ones for January, February of 2026, such as a new Fire Emblem perhaps, and maybe something for May of June of 2026 as well. They've done a post-launch Direct before with the April 2017 Direct, and I figure the next big presentation will probably be the Super Mario Bros. 40th showing in September. Of course, Nintendo is a fan lately of chaining together announcements into a big sequence, so they may feel that putting together a Super Mario Bros. Direct and a regular Direct in September might maximize hype, perhaps with a drumbeat of announcements on the Nintendo Today app to build up to it. Still, I would think that they'll generally want to keep their cards close to their chest with this system. No more announcing games that won't release for over 8 years, as happened with Metroid Prime 4. Do check out this playlist for more of my recent Switch 2 Direct coverage, and I shall see you next time for another Nintendo Forecast.